So self-regulation or self-management is basically what we call self-control. It's one of the key components of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence has 4 components: self-awareness, self-regulation, and then social awareness and relationship management. So the first two, the self-awareness and self-regulation, is about the person. And what you want to do is to really understand yourself. And many of us, we know ourselves because even in our relationships, we tend to say a lot. For those who understand Swahili, we say a lot, mimi ninakuaga. So that is, I am like this. Me, I like things like this. That is a statement of self-awareness. Now, the second that follows that, the self-regulation, is to be able to control and manage me and my emotions so that I can be able to create and maintain healthy relationships. So I do my part. It doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect, but that self-regulation is my skill set to manage who I am, so that who I am doesn't create a lot of pain with those that I am trying to do relationships with. And when we talk about relationships, we are not just talking about the relationship with your significant other. We are talking about your relationship all over your life, you know, your work relationships, your friendships, as well as your family relationships. So your inner resources, because most of the times we may become so outwardly focused that we don't focus on what is going on inward. So your inner resources and abilities that help you manage your impulses is what we are now calling self-regulation. So your self-control, your endurance, your perseverance, your sitting with anxiety, as well as your mental grit. And your mental grit has a lot to do with how tolerant you are of anxiety, of discomfort, whether you have that. Now, depending on our temperaments, we will be at different spectrums on that self-regulation spectrum. So those of us by nature, we can tolerate discomfort, not necessarily because we are better than the ones who react to it. Mainly it's because of the way we are wired. So if I am an avoider of conflict, I will probably look like I have more self-control than the person who seeks the conflict. And the people who seek conflict, they are solution givers. So they see a problem, they want to go right into finding a solution, understanding the problem and finding a solution. While others, they will see the problem, but they want to go inward to analyze alone first before they come out and seek now to be with others to work through the problem. And so knowing yourself becomes very important. Now, just for information's sake, and I won't go into these components, these are the components of self-regulation. So self-control, are you trustworthy? Where if you say you are going to do something, do you follow through? Or are you saying you are going to do something to keep the peace, to avoid conflict? Then we have conscientiousness. How well are you empathetic and compassionate towards others? And so you want to know that about yourself. Plus adaptability. How well do you adapt? There are people who have a problem with flexibility. It is either my way or the highway, or they are unable to allow themselves to have what we call psychological flexibility, to move, to shift. And there are people who shift too much. And so their adaptability might look unreliable because they kind of go with the flow, and they are because those are coping mechanisms that can create relationships that are not very stable. So they can create relationships that are volatile. And innovation, obviously, is how creative, how well are you when it comes to being able to create solutions, to be creative, not to stick to what you know, and you are not willing to kind of grow and become something else. So let me move forward, and I am going to go to now the reason for today. The reason for today is to talk about the steps to self-regulation. So I will do this, and then I will go to a little bit more specific. And then after that, I will be open to a Q&A for us to have a chat about some of the things that you struggle with. So self-development is concerned with our desire to become a better version of ourselves. So for self-regulation to be successful, a person must decide which goals they want to pursue. There has to be a plan for the pursuit of that goal. And then that plan must be implemented. And what we want to do is to make sure that these goals that we are creating, they are goals that we can achieve. They are goals that are very specific. Because if we don't do that, we have a lot of people who are doing the amassing. We are amassing a lot of information, but this information is not transforming us. And so we go to every class, every healing process, we go to therapy, we go to therapy for 4 sessions, then we leave that therapist, we find another one, we have a life coach, we have a career coach, and we are not making progress. We want to be able to actually look and say, have I really defined what are my goals? And also to understand, how do you create goals that you can be able to accomplish and not feel like you're all over the place. And so that's part of that. And I'm going through that because that's not my focus. I have some more clearer steps that I want to focus on. Now, this one here is a very good, maybe I don't know what we call it, but it's very good. It helps us to understand how to do the self-regulation. So I know myself. I am calm, that I don't have to react. I feel I need to sit with my feelings and get to know them. And then I choose is I am not driven by what I feel, but what I feel leads me to make a decision on how to act. So I choose my action. I don't just react. And then the last one is I solve. So in this space where before I get to the solving, as I go down by acknowledging I feel, this is I am means that I'm aware, and then I choose to become, and then I feel, I experience and I identify what my feelings are, and then I choose how I'm going to act. And then I solve the problem because I have gone into cognitive, have moved from my emotional brain to my cognitive brain, and I am objectively looking at a solution. And this is what we want to kind of understand about the process. Now, there's those of us who really cannot name. We only know 2 emotions or 3. I am mad, I am sad, I am feeling bad, or I am happy, I'm excited. But when it comes to being able to name our emotions in terms of self-regulation, we need to go deeper. Sometimes I am experiencing, or I'm expressing anger, but I'm not really angry. I'm really feeling something else. Sometimes the anger I feel, it is actually shame, it is disappointment, or it is I am scared, or I am feeling embarrassed, or I'm feeling confused. But then I am going to be acting out an emotion which is either anger or rejection or humiliation. Whatever I'm going to act out is going to come out. But the person who is receiving that, they are really not understanding why I'm acting the way I am. So for instance, I'm lonely, and instead of communicating that's how I'm feeling, I go into sadness, and my sadness might look like this. I isolate, I go and hide. So if I go and hide, people leave me alone. But I am hoping that as I pull away, that people will know that I am sad, or people will know that I am lonely, and so they will come looking for me. So what we want to do is to really get to understand our emotions so that we name them and we can create a solution for that. So for instance, if I am feeling lonely, I don't need to isolate. I need to reach out to people. But you see, when we feel lonely, we act in isolation. And so people do not know that we need them. And so we want to understand, we want to do the understanding of our emotions as much as we can, so that when we communicate what we need, we are not communicating a message that is either a message that is not understandable, it is not the real message, or it is mixed messages. So people are not very sure what I need. Now, so these are signs that you are emotionally dysregulated. Of course, now we are talking about regulating ourselves, and when we are not regulated, we are dysregulated. So signs that you are dysregulated: difficulty building and maintaining healthy relationships. Then we have self-destructive behaviors. We have hypersensitivity. This is the person we normally say they are hot-tempered. They are, or if they are not hot-tempered outwardly, they are the people who pull away. So they are emotionally unable to manage whatever it is that they are feeling, and so they react. And we normally say, depending on whether you are extrovert or introvert, you either implode or you explode. And then frequent meltdowns or temper tantrums. We know how that looks like. We have had people that we will tell them, or they will tell us, if we are the ones who are acting like that we are bipolar. They might say that at one moment you are happy, then something happens, triggers you, and you go into this other space, and it can be confusing for the people who are around us. Then outbursts of emotions that are displaced onto someone who did not cause them. And in social media, people call it bleeding on the people who didn't hurt you or cut you. And so if you know someone, you yourself, who is experiencing any of this, we know that is a sign that somebody is dysregulated. And being dysregulated is not, it's not something that you can't control. You can. Obviously, because of repeating, because of repetition, we at times think that we cannot control ourselves. There are many of us who believe that we cannot control our emotions. It's not that we cannot control, we just don't know that we can. And number two, it's habits that we form over time. And so it feels that we cannot, it's what is normal for us. It's what is what I might call default, where you just go with whatever comes. And that is why one of my hashtag is usually live by design, because I came to understand quite some time ago that you can choose how you are going to develop your life. And those choices include emotional choices. So I can choose to react, or I can choose to wait and think about how I am going to respond to the situation. And we can do that. It's just that we usually are not trained in that. The guy who came up with emotional intelligence trainings, the book itself, talks about putting this in this training on emotional intelligence in the hands of middle schoolers, elementary school, as a curriculum to help our children develop emotional intelligence, because we parents are not doing a good job of modeling emotional intelligence to our children. Now, our children, if you are raising the Gen Zs and the Alphas, you do know that they are very self-aware, and then they are good in expressing themselves. In my house, I have two Alphas, and I hear things like, "Mom, you are guilt-tripping me." I cannot even imagine what my mother would have done to me if I had told her that. And it was seen as talking back. But now we are raising a generation that is willing and courageous, and we have raised them like that because we didn't like the whole idea of children are to be seen and not to be heard. And so we are raising our children, whether we know it or not, we are raising them to speak up. And so when they begin to tell us and to call us out in that emotional intelligence, we need to be ready to deal with it so that we can harness this energy, because they are still children. They do not know how to manage their emotions. And so our job is to train them on how to do it in a healthy way. For most of us, what we experienced growing up, our parents basically did these things here that I am showing here: silent treatment, anger outbursts. Stonewalling is where we don't deal with issues, we dismiss, we ignore. Contempt is where, for instance, is where a child is told, "I do not want to hear you speak to me again. Open that mouth again and you will see me." So contempt can come in terms of threats, terms of humiliation, terms of looking down on somebody, tearing somebody down. Like you do not have a mind. How can you talk like that? You know, the whole abusive words that tear down a person. Criticism, on the other hand, is where we hit below the belt and we criticize somebody so much that we create in them a sense of shame. And we, for instance, we might say things like, I cannot believe how you can be able to be thinking like that. Who thinks like that? You know, there is something wrong with you. How many times? And we criticize and criticize, and that causes people to feel small. And we need to be careful with that. And then defensiveness is where I'm constantly feeling attacked. Even when I have made a mistake and somebody is holding me accountable, I feel constantly attacked, and so I defend myself. So this is important for us to look and say, how much do I experience this within myself, with my children, with my spouse, with my friends, or how much of this did I experience growing up? So silent treatment, this one for parents, there was a time I have worked with a lot of people. I've been doing family and marriage therapy, personal therapy for 15 years. It's been a long time. And so I have met a lot of people. And I remember one time, a parent who, and it's not just one parent, I have been able to interact with many parents, that they will tell me that whenever they get upset, they will go to their room and close the door, and their kids are there at the door knocking, and mom is not going to open the door. And the child will find herself, "Mom, can I be your friend? Am I your friend?" And when I hear a parent, obviously a parent who will hear their child asking them, "Mommy, can I be your friend?" or "Daddy, am I your friend?" That parent, normally they feel so broken inside because they cannot even imagine why their child would be feeling that way. But the reason why a child would feel that way is because there is this abandonment of the relationship whenever mom or dad is upset. And so the child begins to understand that I cannot make mom or dad upset because they are going to leave me. And so this silent treatment is really devastating to any relationship. Anger outbursts, on the other hand, is where we are controlling our environment by being angry. And what happens when we have anger outbursts, it's like we are threatening people. We are making people afraid so that they leave us alone. That's the way we are dealing with emotional dysregulation. I am going to get you before you get me. And now I usually tell people that it is good. You know, the bully is not usually a very happy person, or a brave person, so to speak, or a courageous person. The reason why they will bully, and usually if you look at a bully, they never go for the popular kids. They don't go for the stronger kids. Bullies go for those who are weak and vulnerable. Why? It's because they themselves are feeling very afraid, and they are acting out of their fear, where they are bleeding on others who, because they can. And so that now the messages that are being sent from this anger outburst is that don't mess with me, I'm going to break you up. But really, when you think about it, and we have seen this in movies quite a bit, some of us, we have experienced this. Myself, I used to have a bully in primary school. One time, I just decided to show up as to protect myself, and that bully never again tried it with me. So sometimes the anger outbursts are for control purposes. Then we have when we talk about stonewalling, is where a person is going to kind of ignore the conversation so that the other person who is coming to them can stop quickly. So if I don't engage with you, you will stop quickly. And so these coping mechanisms that I have listed here, they come from a place of fear. And when they come from a place of fear, we will go into ego space, and we are going to go into self-preservation because we are not feeling safe in the conversation. So there are those of us who will do the stonewalling, the silent treatment, the contempt, and the defensiveness. Usually you will find it with introverts. The defensiveness especially is going to happen with sanguines, and the sanguine, the what are they called? The phlegmatics. You will find them doing the defensiveness. The silent treatment, mainly you will see it with the melancholics. The anger outbursts, you will see it with the cholerics. And so the stonewalling, that is a phlegmatic, that's a phlegmatic thing. Phlegmatics, because they don't want to engage. They feel if this is going to go into a conflict, I can't handle it, and therefore I'm going to be quite maybe even not being dismissive, but very directly, but I will make sure that you know I'm not interested in the talk, so that you can leave me alone, and then we will not have any kind of conflict. So I'm not willing to be in that conflict space. So it is good for us to figure out, why do I use these coping mechanisms in my interactions with other people? We need to figure out also the emotional wound that happens, that causes me to act in these ways. So that that emotional wound is what we are calling, I am not feeling safe here. And therefore, I have to go into my self-preservation space, which will be any of this or other things that we do. Now, the behaviors that might follow such coping mechanisms, there might be behaviors which are in the addictive space. For instance, the use of substances to cope with whatever it is that I am feeling, or behaviors like relationships. A lot of people will have these relationships where we are doing a lot of flirting and other things like that to cope, because the flirting triggers emotions of good feelings, Like now oxytocin, which is your chemical that makes you feel connected with others. You feel a sense of belonging. Then they also they can trigger things like dopamine or the endorphins, the good feel hormones that make you feel better than feeling disconnected with someone who's important to you, feeling lonely or feeling angry. And usually the anger is coming from abandonment. It's coming from loss of expectation. And we have to kind of get to really know ourselves, because if we do, then we can handle whatever is happening, especially within our relationships. Now, please use the chat if you have questions. I will be doing a Q&A in a little bit. So use the chat to ask whatever questions that you have. Then this one here is about the continued steps to self-regulation. And now this one goes a little bit deeper than the one I had showed you earlier. And this is about now you sitting with your emotions. So number one, you've got to know what you are feeling, especially noticing, allowing yourself to know what you are feeling starts with you noticing. And I usually say, because sometimes you cannot really tell what you're feeling, it is good to know that when your mood changes, even if it's just a small change, and you can feel the mood, usually you can tell the mood has changed. If you are feeling that way, that is the alarm that goes off in your system to tell you, pay attention, something is not right. Now, when we think about, like, if you are walking through the city and you are walking through a dark alley or a lonely lane, if there is something that is going to happen around you, there are people who say that they feel the back of their hair, the hair in the back of their head rising, and they begin to feel, I'm not in a safe place. And so when you feel the mood has changed, especially within now your own experience, now that feeling in the street, that is danger, that is real danger, and you want to, because it's physical danger. But when it comes to emotional danger, what you want to do is your mood is going to change. You are having a conversation with someone, or you are anticipating somebody to come, or you see a phone call from someone, they trigger a change of mood. So you want to name what you are feeling. Am I feeling anger, or am I feeling sadness? And it is important to do that, because most of the times we will tend to act according to the way we are feeling. So the first emotion we normally feel is either we are feeling mad, we are feeling sad, or happy. And now some people will say, I feel bad, B-A-D. And so now that is how you are feeling at that point. We want to go deeper and ask, what is the real emotion? So the real emotion sometimes is disappointment, sometimes is loss. And this loss can be loss of control, loss of respect, loss of love, loss of care, loss of clarity. It can be any of that, or the repeat of a behavior that you have spoken about and your partner or the other person you are dealing with has repeated again. So that is a loss of expectation. And also that can go now into accountability issues and stuff like that. So you want to name, what is it that I am feeling? Number 3, you want to accept the emotion. And this emotion is your guide. The other day, I was listening to a reel on IG, and the lady was using the analogy of fire alarm. When the fire alarm goes off, it doesn't mean that it's their fire. It means that you need to check. And so when if I am in the house and I am I am cooking, and there is a smell of something burning, it doesn't mean my food is burnt. It means I need to go and look. It's an alarm that tells me, hey, pay attention. Something is going on. Our emotions are like that. They are our friends. They are our guides. They are saying, hey, pay attention. Now, unfortunately, for many of us, we don't like emotions. We think emotions and feelings are a sign of weakness. And so we fight them. That is, and when we fight our emotions because we don't accept them, we don't think they are our friends and our guide, what happens? We are trying to reject ourselves. So we are doing self-rejection. Now, if we are not regulated and we just go with the emotions, what we are doing is we are presenting ourselves to the world as a person who is not safe. And so we are still rejecting ourselves. We are not allowing ourselves to be the real we. We need to learn, if we want to manage our emotions better, we've got to learn the skills of communication, effective communication, and we need to learn the skills of effective conflict resolution and management. So living in the moment means that I notice my sensations in my body. I can be able to say, when I am angry, this is how my body acts. When I am sad, this is how my body acts, you know. And if we can be able to do that, these days, I am really studying about our immune system and how it is affected by stress. And what is stress? Stress is when in your life you are experiencing something that you do not have control over. So it is overwhelming you because your emotions are intense more than usual. And so you are finding yourself in a space of overwhelm. And so when we have high levels of stress like that, and we do not have a way of managing the sensations in our bodies, our immune system is going to suffer. Now, so the physical immune system, because usually when we are in that space, we are not eating well, we are not resting well, we are not, and if we are eating, we are not eating foods that are going to protect our immune system. We are craving more for carbohydrates and sugar. And so what is happening is that we are going to get dysregulated because for our brain to stay steady, it needs all the nutrients, especially minerals, which are going to come from healthier sources of food, like now your vegetables, your vitamins, and you will need, and usually when we are mad, angry, if we need to eat, we are not going to look for a salad or a fruit. For many of us, we are going to look for bread. We are going to look for mandazi. We are going to, if that is the way we cope with stress. So we want to also understand that when you are aware of how your body is going to react to the stressors that you are going through, it is good for you because now you can protect your immune system. And if you protect your immune system, you can protect your emotional immunity. Because then you are not reacting and causing and actually creating more havoc for your system. So if I know that one of the ways that my body reacts to stress is headaches, I need to ask myself, because usually headaches are caused by dehydration and maybe low sugar. So I want to ask myself, and also lack of sleep, lack of rest. So I want to ask myself, while whenever I get to this self-dysregulated space, how does my body react? And now I can fix my bodily reactions so that I can be able to work on my mental wellness. So by not allowing my emotions to run the day and see them as guides and as friends, I can now start to create solutions that will take care of myself, especially in the areas that I can protect myself. So many of us, if I were to take a poll, you would tell me that when I have certain stressors in my life, I don't have an appetite. Staki kukula. I don't want to be with people. I don't want to go to work. I can't sleep. Those kinds of reactions to a stressor, you can control that by noticing it. But most of the times we are not able to connect that with stress in a way that we can create solutions for that. So it's important to understand the connections between our emotions, our physical, and also our spiritual. Remember, also when we are in stress, one of the things that I hear, and I have gone through that myself, is our prayer life, our connection with our higher power goes into a backseat. Now, if I am going to have conversations with my higher power, they will be complaints, grumbling. We call it grumbling. And so I am unable to really have a meaningful moment with my higher power. Now, I will tell you this. During the time when I actually started to learn how to manage myself, I was in my last year of 20s and into my 30s. Maybe it took me about 29, 30, 31. Those 3 years, there was a lot of self-evaluation, self-regulation that I was doing. And during that time, one of the things that really carried me during that time was my faith in God. Because now, for me at that point, I didn't go to God to grumble, but I really went to God to say, you must have a better plan for me, for you to allow these things to happen. And so I chose to notice the moments I was in, accept the emotions I was feeling, and begin to use the resources that I had, including the resource of my spiritual space. And that was what now we are talking about, your values. Act according to your values. So my spiritual values or my spiritual space informed how I was going to behave. And so I remember how much I felt protected, because that gave me control. It gave me a lot of control. And even when my emotions were all over the place, I was feeling that I am somewhat in control. And so you have to understand yourself in a way that you are going to be able to manage that emotional dysregulation. When it comes to more strategies, they identify and reduce your triggers. Here, I am talking about now knowing that the spaces, we say people, places, and things. You need to figure out what are the situations, who are the people, which are the places that trigger my emotional dysregulation, so that you can be able to begin to be more intelligent about your experience and your interactions with other people, with your environment. So being able to identify the people, the places, and the situations that usually trigger the emotional dysregulation that you find yourself in is a big, big win for you. And so don't stop saying people make me. Identify specific individuals. And in this space, you might want to look back and say to yourself, this feeling I'm having right now, these thoughts I'm having right now, these emotions I'm having right now, are they familiar? Have I felt this before? And then you can go back and begin to go below the iceberg. I am sure all of us are familiar with the analogy of the iceberg. So allow yourself to go into, probably there is something that I can connect this with, so that now you begin to ask yourself, this trigger of today, am I just going with the default of what I have historically felt before, or is it a real trigger right now? Has it triggered some old pain, or is it a real trigger right now? And if it is, it has triggered old pain, I need to separate the old pain and tell myself. And this is where, when we do the healing of the inner child, this is where I usually say, you need to tell your inner child, no, we are not in the same place we were. This is not mommy. This is not your big brother. This is not your sister. This is not your cousin. Whoever it was that hurt you in the past, you are able to tell your inner child, no, this is not them. This is a new situation. This is John, and this is what John has done, and we need to deal with John in the current moment. And that is what we call mindfulness. Mindfulness is dealing with your issues in the current moment. If you are married and what you are experiencing, or what you experience in your relationship, is whenever your partner does something, they remind you of all the other things that have been done before. Either your partner tells you, even last year, the year before, and they remind you of all those things. What that means is that your partner is connected to a lot of things that have happened in the past, because they have not had the opportunity to be heard, for somebody to validate that what happened to you was wrong, and for people to make amends, where somebody is accountable and somebody is making amends to say, I am so sorry I did that, and now I am committed to doing something else. And hopefully your partner or the people that you are dealing with, they are not doing that because you have finally said, I've had it. That they are also intelligent enough to be able to regulate themselves, because they've been hearing that this is not acceptable. So being able to help yourself, if you are the one who loops things from the past and it's hard for you to let them go, anything that you are still holding on that happened to you many years ago, it means that thing traumatized you. And what you are experiencing in the current moment is what we call PTSD. It's a form of PTSD. And I usually tell people PTSD is on a spectrum. Any mental health, psychological health situation that we are dealing with, in our diagnosis, we are going to give you mild, moderate, or severe. So usually with PTSD, we only think of the severe. But PTSD can also be mild. And it only happens when you have certain triggers. And so it is important for you to allow yourself to say, this one is because of what happened before. And so when it happens in the current time, I am reminded. And then the message I gave myself, that is what we are calling here. What are you telling yourself about what happened? I'm not good enough. I am useless. I will never amount to anything. Everything I do, it does not amount to any, nobody likes me. I am bound to be alone forever. You know, those kinds of things. We want to be able to understand ourselves so that we can do the self-regulation. And I have talked about tuning into your physical symptoms. I've talked about that quite a bit. And then engage in positive self-talk. So this is a practical thing you can do. Create 2 columns and allow yourself to write, because this negative self-talk that we tell ourselves, the story we tell ourselves, unfortunately, we tell ourselves that and then we project it to the other person. So I am feeling the things that I am feeling, and I tell my other person that's the way. Yeah. But you see, and sometimes I usually tell people, and this is something that I have myself tried, where somebody told me something negative. And then I would say, could it be that's the way you are feeling about yourself? And of course, if you do that to somebody, they get surprised. But you see, that in itself is a way of you telling where if I tune in, we call that emotional attunement. If I tune in to your wound and I say, you have just told me that I am good for nothing, And I'm wondering, is that the way you are feeling about yourself right now because of what we are going through? That means that person is going to feel seen and heard. It will take them a moment before they realize what has just happened, because they are used to, if they say whatever they say and they attack or criticize, what they get in return is defense. Now, here where you are not defending, you are almost kind of aligning with them. You might dislocate their dysregulation, and it might change the trajectory of that conversation. And then you want, so the engaging in self-talk, this is your tool. Create a column and write things down. So say, this is my self-criticism. This is my self-talk, which is negative. So I'm telling myself I'm unacceptable, I'm lonely, I will never, all those things that I'm telling myself, I write them down. And then on the other column, I need to write what the other person has done that has upset me. So I will say they have disrespected me, and I say how. I might say they have abandoned me, and I say how. And then I might say whatever, I write everything down so that I am going to look and say to myself, the fact that I'm telling myself these negative things, I want to quantify that. Is that because of what they did that now I am critiquing myself? Or is it because I believe it? Now, if there is a belief, I need to go deeper, because that means I have had this over and over again throughout my life, and it became a belief. Now, depending on who I am in terms of the way I'm wired, if I am an introvert, I turn that inward and I take responsibility and I don't speak up. I don't tell my partner that this is not acceptable to me, and I don't stay consistent with that message, so that now we have created an adversarial relationship. Even with a boss, we can do that. So the boss comes and they are dysregulated, you trigger them because you haven't done things the way they wanted, and they just tell you all these things that are negative about you. And so what do you do? Because of the fear of retaliation, being whatever it is, you will keep quiet to keep the peace so that you can survive in that space. What happens then? You are going to engage in negative self-talk. And that is why it's important to ask yourself, where is this negative self-talk coming from? And I need to change it into positive self-talk. And it's not what we call cheerleading yourself, not necessarily. You want to do self-talk that is based on truth. So for instance, if my boss comes in and says, you are a useless worker because I have a deadline that I missed today, or I came to work late today, I need to self-talk by saying my boss thinks that I am a useless worker, not because I am a useless worker, because he is disappointed or angry that I came to work late. But when I look at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I came to work on time. And the reason I'm late today is because of. That is what we call real self-talk. So it is not because my boss told me I'm useless that I start chanting, no, I am useful, I am useful, I am, no. You want to do a real positive talk that is based on facts and on real occurrences. So which means that I am going to look at the critical voice in my head, and I am going to base it on reality. Reality is, yes, I have done something wrong right here. That is accountability. I take accountability for what I did wrong. I do not take accountability for somebody else's doing wrong by saying maybe I deserve it, or what we pacify and we say, well, my boss is usually like that. No, allow yourself to say, no, he did me wrong. He didn't have to shout at me like that. And also you need to say, but he does not know the backstory. He doesn't know what happened. He's not interested. So you don't have to own it. and tell yourself it is completely your fault, because then that is where the self-criticism, negative criticism, negative self-talk comes from. And then after you have done your self-talk, and I have given you a tool there, do those 2 columns, you want to ask yourself, how do I respond to this? So you want to choose your response, and you do not want to go just with the emotions that you are feeling. And then look for positive emotions. It is what we call, look for the silver lining within that storm, and allow yourself to be able to breathe. Breathing is such an important practice that we can learn. When I was in my 20s, I don't know where I learned this from, but there was a time I used to have a boss who was very dysregulated. And he would just come burst into my office and say whatever he wanted to say, and then he would go away. So before I was able to not take him seriously, I used to, once he's gone, I used to feel so tearful. And so I would go to the bathroom, and I would go look myself in the mirror, I would wash my face, and I would speak to myself. And I would say, it's okay, you are going to be okay. And then I might say a prayer, and then go back to my desk and continue on. Over time, I learned to journal. So I would do the whole thing of opening a Word document. I was a secretary then. I would open a Word document, and I would take my 5 minutes to write everything I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. And that used to help me quite a bit. And then eventually, I started to realize this guy is like that. So I separated my emotions from his. So if he came and he shouted at me, I would take it as that's what he did last week. That's what he does when he's upset. And so I stopped being surprised, and I stopped having my expectations not met, because I accepted. We call that radical acceptance. Now I know with learning about mindfulness and self-regulation, I know it's called radical acceptance. It's where you accept your reality without having, don't keep the fantasy that you expect people will act differently. Accept that for what it is until they act different, so that you can position yourself. You can position yourself to be able to manage that environment.